Here we go, everybody. The best jokes of the year. Hope you like them. Number 10. The new girl in town was a former beauty queen, and she was as blonde as she was beautiful. Well, she soon got a job at the local grocery store. Word got out, and before long, all the guys in town made their way into the store to shop, but mostly just to stare at her. They would always request something from the top shelf, so she'd have to climb the ladder and they'd crane their necks to get a better view. She was not too bright when it came to common sense and had no idea why everybody wanted something from the top shelf. She tried rearranging the store, but no matter what she tried, all the guys wanted something from the top shelf and she had to make her way back up the ladder. Well, finally, she decided to put the raisin bread on the top shelf. No one likes raisin bread, she said to herself. Well, later that day, guy after guy came in and ordered raisin bread. Well, she made her way up the ladder, and while she was up there, an old man walked into the store, and thinking she could save herself a trip up and down the ladder, she said, "Excuse me, sir, but while I'm up here, is yours raisin too?" "Nope," he said, "but it's a-twitching a little." Number 9. There was an Olympic swimming champ who got married to a beautiful girl. Well, they went on their honeymoon, and he treated her to an exhibition of his swimming prowess. He jumped into the pool and swam through the water with expert strokes. He came up on the other side in just a matter of seconds. Well, his proud smile faded slightly when his beautiful wife jumped in and repeated the same feat in half the time. He had to mask his bruised ego, so he walked up to her and said, "Darling, that was wonderful. Why didn't you tell me you were a swimming champion, too?" "Well, I'm not," she said. "I used to be a lady of the night in Venice. I worked both sides of the canal." Number 8. There was a farm girl who was the smartest one in the whole family. She always got good grades and was actually accepted to college. Her family decided no matter what, they were going to make sure she went. They took out a second mortgage on the farm and sold all the livestock. They worked hard over the 4 years of her college life, and after she graduated, the old farmer picked her up from the bus stop in his old pickup truck. They started driving back to the family farm, and the new college grad turned to her dad and said, "Pops, I got a confession to make. After 4 years of college, I ain't a virgin no more." Well, her old dad hung his head in deep disappointment. Finally he spoke. "After all the sacrifices that your ma and me made to get you a good education, and you still using the word ain't?" Number 7. There was a beautiful blonde woman driving her car across country in the summer. The trip was hot and dusty, but she spotted a small pond just off the road and decided to hop in for a swim. So she hopped out of her clothes and jumped in and had been enjoying the cool water for a couple of minutes when all of a sudden she noticed a couple of farmers watching her from behind some bushes. Well, her clothes were all the way at the other side of the pond, and there was an old wash tub stuck in the sand near her. So, holding that in front of her, she marched out of the water and walked right towards the farmers. "Don't you two old idiots have anything better to do than to just look at me? Do you know what I think?" she said. "Well, yes, ma'am," said one of the men. "I do believe I know exactly what you think. You think there's a bottom in that wash tub." Number 6. There was a guy that wandered home completely sloshed up at midnight every night. His wife would wait up each night and greet him with yells and screams. Finally, fed up with the situation, the wife decides she's going to seek some advice from a professional. The professional tells her, "Why don't you go ahead and treating your husband a little differently when he comes home. Instead of berating him, why don't you give him some loving words? Maybe welcome him home with a smooch. That might change his ways. Well, that night, when he stumbles in, the wife leads him into the living room where she sits him down in an easy chair and puts his feet up and takes off his shoes. Well, after cuddling with him for a little while, she says, "You know, it's pretty late. You think we better go upstairs to bed now, don't you?" The guy says, "I guess we might as well. I'm gonna be in a lot of trouble with my wife when I get home anyways." Number 5. Well, there was a guy named Bob. He was no great catch. Wasn't the smartest of fellas, not the best looking, couldn't hold down a job, which is why it took him by such a surprise when one of the most beautiful women in town took an interest in him. Well, she followed him around town, called him all the time, and clearly seemed to be in love with him. Well, figuring this was his last chance at love, Bob finally asked her to marry him. "Look," he says, "I'm not much of a catch, and I know I'm not very smart, but you seem really interested, so will you marry me?" Well, she got a confused look on her face and said, "Oh, Bob, I'm sorry, you must have misunderstood. You see, I'm a nymphomaniac." Well, Bob said, "Look, I don't care how much stuff you steal, as long as you don't cheat on me." Number 4. A blonde, a brunette, and a redhead were having their lunches at work. Well, the blonde woman says, "You know, I'm sick of having peanut butter and jelly all the time. You know, we should jump off the roof of the building tomorrow if we get it again." Well, the ladies agree, and the next day they all meet up on the roof at work and open their lunch boxes to expose 3 peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. So they all jump. Well, that night at the hospital, the families of the ladies are all in the waiting room. The brunette and the red-headed parents are crying. Their husbands are in shock. But the blonde girl's parents are silent and confused. Her husband's just standing there in shock, shaking his head, while the other parents and husbands approach him and ask him why the girls were acting so strangely. Well, the blonde's husband says, I just don't understand. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. She makes her own lunch." Number 3. An old man goes to confession and he tells the priest that on Friday night he'd been out at a tavern and met a young woman. She was 22, he says. Gorgeous, and I started lusting, Father. "Well, yes," said the priest, "lust is a dangerous sin." "Well, there's more," says the guy. "We went back to her place and I had the time of my life." Well, the priest pauses and says, "Well, how long has it been since your last confession, my son?" "Well, I've never been before. This is my first confession." "Well, how is it possible this is your first?" Well, the guy says, I don't actually go to church." "Why are you telling me all this then?" said the priest. "Telling you? Are you kidding me? I'm telling everybody." Number 2. A factory worker went to a counselor to talk about his obsessions. "You gotta help me. All I can think about all day at work is putting it in the pickle slicer." What?" said the counselor. "You wanna put what in the pickle slicer?" "Yeah," the guy said. "I wanna put it in the pickle slicer. Keeps me up at night. When I finally fall asleep, I dream about it. When I'm at work, I just stare and daydream about it. And finally, last week, during my lunch break, I stayed in the factory, and at last, I just did it." "What?" said the counselor. "My God, what happened, man?" "Well," the guy said, "the boss came back from lunch early and saw what I was doing. He fired me on the spot." No. What happened with the pickle slicer, man?" "Oh, yeah, sorry, I forgot. She got fired, too." Number 1. 2 ladies were staying at a family cabin for the weekend. They planned to lay on the beach and swim in the lake, basically just relax. Well, as the day wore on, they realized they were running a little low on supplies. So they decided to ride their bikes into town. It was a beautiful day and a fine time for a bike ride. Well, they came to a fork in the road, and one lady said, "Why don't we go left? It's a shortcut. It'll save us about 10 minutes." So they turn left and continue along. Well, soon the road begins to narrow and get pretty bumpy. Well, finally, as they come down the hill, they see the town in the distance. One girl turns to the other and says, "Wow, there it is. I've never come this way before." The other girl says, "Yeah, I know, right? It's the Cobblestones." Well, what'd you think? Which one was your favorite? Did I miss your favorite from this year? Let me know in the comments. Thanks.